In this lesson, we're going to take a look at several V-Ray geometry options. First, let's start the render. You'll see that the scene is empty for now. Let's go ahead and connect the box node here to the VGeo node, which in turn we want to connect to the instancer node. Finally, let's connect the instancer node to the render node. To see our models, we also need to connect the Move X output from the randomization section into the Move input of our instancer node. Now we can see many instances of these boxes populating the render. Now, pan around Grasshopper to locate the plane nodes. Let's move the count slider to reduce the count of the instances, and you'll see that the IPR updates with fewer boxes. If we increase the count, we have more box instances. Okay, let's go ahead and stop the render for now. Pan back over to the geometry nodes, and let's connect the VGeo node directly to the render node. Then restart the render. Now hold Shift and connect the sphere node to the same VGeo node input, and we will see both the box and the sphere objects appear in the render. Let's also show the infinite plane by holding Shift as we connect the plane node to the render node, so that will render the box, sphere, and plane geometry together. You can then slide the Z offset slider to move the plane on the Z axis up and down. Let's now reset the value to 0 and connect the box to the plane node. The plane will align with the box's bottom coordinates. Let's try this again with the sphere. Now the plane aligns with the sphere as expected. Next, disconnect the sphere from the plane node, and then right-click and select Show Controls. The toggle for the shadow catcher now appears to the left of the node. Let's set it to True. The shadow catcher is useful for compositing in post, since it isolates the shadows in the render. If you switch to the alpha channel in the frame buffer, for example, you'll see that the shadows are visible. Next, go ahead and stop the render, and let's review the proxy importer. First, connect the proxy importer node to the render node, and start the interactive render again. You can see that there is a .vrmesh file connected to the proxy importer file path. The tree from the vrmesh we see is created at the center of the coordinate system, which corresponds to the grid's center. To see more instances of our tree model, let's connect the proxy plane to the proxy importer node to populate the scene with more trees. Let's also add random scaling by connecting the scale node to the proxy importer node. Notice how the size of the trees now varies. If we want to decrease or increase the count of the trees populating the plane, we can slide the number slider in the proxy plane group to the left or right. For now, let's keep the number at 5. Beneath the proxy importer and the material preset nodes, you'll also notice the number of instances indication here. If we connect these two nodes, you'll see now in the IPR that the tree instances have the material preset nodes colors applied to them. Now let's stop the render and then preview a V-Ray scene by connecting the importer node to the render node like you see on my screen. Start the render to preview the scene. We're currently viewing the facade.vr scene. Let's zoom out in the viewport to see it a bit better. Now let's stop the render again, switch the importer node's light toggle to false, and then connect the proxy plane to the importer. Now start the interactive render again. Notice this time that the frame buffer renders 5 instances of the facade model. You can also pan around the Rhino viewport for a live update in the IPR. Once more, let's stop the render and this time view the trees grass V-Ray scene by connecting its node to the importer's file path. Also, let's switch the scale node to trees grass from the menu. Finally, start the IPR again and let's preview the scene.